Hello and welcome to my very special deck tech of Tom Bombadil. This is a commander that I just picked up from Dublin, where we went to a store and we found this in the bulk, and I always want to play with Tom Bombadil because I really like the books yeah, really like the character too. Just feels a bit like a carefree commander, but let's get into it. Tom Bombadil is one of the classic commanders. I would say is very easy to pick up because you can deck build him in a way that in which you can keep getting cards into the deck in a fun way, because Tom Bombadil only cares about sagas. So if you see any saga that you really like, you can play it. Now, you might have some custom things in here, like maybe you will sing all the songs that Tom Bombadil sings, but you don't have to. Could be fun. Don't hold it against me, please. But okay, what does Tom Bombadil do? So as long as there are 4 or more lore counters among sagas you control, Tom Bombadil has hexproof and indestructible. This is because of flavor reasons, because in Magic the Gathering, things get indestructible when they become a god, and Tom Bombadil is always a god, but if there are enough stories going on around Tom Bombadil becomes really godly. He comes into his strength. So that's why. Also, he likes singing songs. The songs he sings also give him strength. Maybe there are some theories about this. Then, whenever the final chapter ability of a saga you control resolves, reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a saga card. So if a saga is done, you get a new one, because you get to put it onto the battlefield and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Now note that this ability triggers only once each turn. So on average, your sagas will have 3 chapters. Sometimes they have more, and these are way better in this deck actually, because you will get to have 4 sagas onto the battlefield easier if you get your average up to 4. But usually you will have to play 1 or 2 sagas still, because you will get 1 saga a turn from Tom Bombadil. Now, talking about turn cycles is a different thing, but we will get there. For the numbers, we'll talk about them a bit. I have chosen for just the normal numbers. I needed to put up some board wipes, so you can be very flexible with this. I chose Toxic Deluge because I really like it, for example, and there are some sagas, and I put all of them in because I think it's just more flavorful that way, even though, for example, Fraction Scriptures doesn't really fit Tom Bombadil. This one destroys all non-artifact creatures. You can make 1 creature into an artifact before that happens. This one destroys all non-legendary creatures. Very bad in Commander in a way, because you don't get to remove the commanders. But also in some ways pretty good in this deck, because you don't have too many creatures. Usually, Summon Leviathan returns all creatures to their owner's hands. Now Tom Bombadil will also be returned this way, even if he becomes a real god. And Facing of Self-Fear enables you to protect 2 of your creatures by phasing them out until chapter 3. And then you get to destroy all creatures. Now, if you can make sure that the chapter 3 never happens for Facing of Self-Fear, for example, you get to keep phasing out creatures of your opponents if you want. Now, this is a bit of a two-sided coin or sword, double-sided sword, because if the board wipe does happen, you are protecting your opponent's creatures and not your own. But if it doesn't, then you can keep removing things with this, so that's pretty good too. Now, you are probably asking, why does that happen? Well, I'm going to put this on categories first, but we have a theme which I call repetition, and this has been done a lot in the last few sets. Repetition is my theme for things that make our sagas happen again. For example, Garnet Princess of Alexandria. When she attacks, you may remove a lore counter from each of any number of sagas you control, so 1 per saga, and you put a +1 counter on Garnet for each lore counter removed this way. Now in this way you can make your sagas happen infinitely. In that way, for example, you can keep phasing your opponent's stuff out as long as you keep attacking with Garnet. Garnet also becomes stronger every time, so this is definitely a possibility. I think Garnet is pretty good because of this. But there's also some reanimation in here, like Dance of the Mans, which is a return up to X target artifact and or enchantment cards, non-aura, with mana value X or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. If X is 6 or more, so you pay 8 mana or more, those permanents are 4/4 as well, in addition to their other types. So you can attack with them later and kill your opponents that way. So it's almost a finisher, I would say. There are more ways to do this. I won't go over them all very deeply. Maybe Goldberry because it's so flavorful. You move a counter of each kind not on Goldberry from another target permanent you control onto Goldberry. That is very good because you get to put Saga counters on Goldberry, and then later for 1 mana you can move those Saga counters onto another target permanent, so you can put it on another creature if you don't want to increase the or further the story, but you can also put it on another saga to actually further that saga then. So that's really good. You also get to draw cards if you do that. Astrid's Invocation is a bit weird, but this one enters as a copy of an enchantment you control, so you can have it enter as any other saga and have the first chapter happen. Maybe you can then keep it on the battlefield a bit, but you could also well, at the beginning of your upkeep you get to exile this enchantment to return it to the battlefield under its owner's control, so that you get to keep choosing another saga or something else with this every time. Some more reanimation, I think. Yeah, there are also some doublers like Strionic Resonator, which copies a target triggered ability you control. So you can use this on your sagas as well, and this is, or better yet, you can use this on Tom Bombadil, which is a triggered ability, where whenever the final chapter happens, you get to search for 2 sagas now. So that's really good. Some repetition. I have a saga list, but it is also way longer, of course. Right now we have categories not enabled, but we don't have to go through these too much. Only the Bath Song is here. Sort of draws you cards, but it costs you a card. Also you need to discard a card, so it's not card advantage in that way at first, but at the second time this happens you do get an extra card, so it's a little bit of card advantage. But mostly I like this because of the flavor, but also you get to shuffle any number of target cards from your graveyard into your library, and you might think that is not that important, but sometimes you can storm off pretty quickly with this deck and your sagas are all out of your deck, and now you can repeat them over and over, and you can choose which ones you are repeating, so in that way you can go on and on. For removal, I have some things that really aren't removal, some things that are, some things that are way too expensive to really be counted here. Summon Bahamut, for example, is 9 mana to destroy up to 1 target non-land permanent. Doesn't really count as removal, where you can choose to play this for 9 mana. But note that Tom Bombadil says put the card onto the battlefield and doesn't really tell you anything about how much it has to cost. So you can still summon Bahamut in this way. Yo Jimbo, I really don't know how to say these. You exile an artifact, enchantment, or tapped creature an opponent controls. This way you can at least remove something. But you also get to protect yourself a little bit later and then get to ramp a bit. So it's a lot of things, and this is often the case with sagas. So for myself, I have counted most sagas as only their first chapter, unless, so for example here, this could be counted as ramp because it creates treasures in the 4th chapter, but I didn't count it as ramp as such, so that you know that you can play something on the first saga or maybe the second saga and get the effect that you want. Now this is the upside and the downside of sagas, is that you get multiple things on one card. This only seems like an upside, but the downside is that these cards usually are too expensive for just their first chapter. So you will need them around for a little bit before they get to their value, usually to just over half their chapters. For example, the Kami War says exile target non-land permanent an opponent controls. This could easily have been 4 mana, but it costs 6. From chapter 2, you get to return another non-land permanent to its owner's hand, and then each opponent discards a card. This is 2 mana. At this point, you play even, and that's pretty good. But then from chapter 3 onwards, you get to flip it, and you get Okagachi Made Manifest is all colors as a 6/6. So an all color 6/6 flying trample, and now it's pretty worth it, because that should have already been just 6 mana probably. Some more removal that's normal on sagas. I want to talk about the Trickster-God's Heist, because it's better than most people think, I think. You may exchange control of 2 target creatures. Doesn't really come up too often, but you may do it, so you don't have to do it yet. But then from chapter 2 onwards, you may exchange control of 2 target non-basic non-creature permanents that share a card type. So you can steal an important enchantment from your opponents and give them back the Trickster-God's Heist. Now also you can do this over and over. So you could keep trading sagas that are almost done. Some of them aren't really that important after their first or second sagas. For example, Binding of the Old Gods, last one is just creatures you control gain Death Touch. Could not be that important for some opponents. So you can trade your old Binding of the Old Gods for something important, and then you are happy. Isn't that happiness? Yes, that's what happiness is all about. For card draw, I have Sterling Grove. It's a 2 mana enchantment that gives your other enchantments Shroud. It also helps you to search your library for an enchantment and put it onto the top of your library. So that is not really card draw, but I put it here because I didn't know where else to put it, and I still think it's really good and cheap for what it does. The Cruelty of Gix says you search the library for a card, still not card advantage. You might be seeing a theme here. The Horse Heresy is card advantage, but only works for each creature you control but don't own. Now it does get to steal some creatures from your opponents, so that works. But there are multiple things in this deck that aren't necessarily in the stream right now that draw you a card when another enchantment enters the battlefield under your control. And these will go off pretty quickly. It's Eidolon of Blossoms, for example, Sithis is another, and Cetacean Champion is another one. Now for the ramp, I don't think I need to talk about a lot of it. But I do want to note Dryad of the Elysian Grove, really big hitter here, because it makes all of your basic lands, all other things, all other colors, really good because of it. And cards like Faber or Elder in a 5-color deck are also really good, because for each color among permanents you control, you add 1 mana of that color. So that also works really well. Now I want to talk about the finishers before wrapping this up. For finishers, I have Bellow, Bard of the Brambles. This one can turn your sagas into 4/4 elemental creatures that also get to draw you a card when they deal damage. Starfield of Nyx I really like, because as long as you have 5 or more enchantments, which should be pretty easy and should be sort of the goal of this deck as well, each other enchantment you control is a creature that has base power and toughness equal to its mana value. And many of these are very big, so they will be very big creatures, some with flying that will definitely help you win the game. Knights of Round I wouldn't say is the biggest one, but it creates 3 2/2s 4 times. It is also a 3/3, and you can keep doing this of course with your other abilities, so you have enough creatures before the chapter 5 goes off, so other creatures get +2/+2 and indestructible. This means that you have a bunch of 2/2s that are now 4/4s as well. There's a thing with 4/4s in enchantments, but these will help you swing in for the win. Kiora, Best Sea-God, doesn't seem like a finisher, but it creates an 8/8, and then you tap all non-land permanents target opponent controls, and they don't untap during their controller's next untap step, so they're stunned. And then, while they are still tapped, you also get to gain control of a target opponent and or target opponent. That would be really strong. Target permanent and opponent controls, and you get to untap it, so you get to attack with it. I think you should be able to finish the game with this. Historian's Boon is also a kind of finisher, because whenever you finish a saga, you get a 4/4 angel with flying and vigilance. These should be able to deal some damage at least. In the Darkness, Bind Them creates 3/3s with menace. And also for each opponent you gain control of a creature they control until end of turn, so that you can attack with them. Darren Back Again will create a 6/6, not really a finisher here, I just put it there because I like it. And Archon of Sun's Grace will create a 2/2 flying Pegasus whenever an enchantment enters. These ones of course should be able to get in pretty quickly, and also you have some other enchantments that are removable, for example, that can also create more Pegasi. Now this was it for this deck for now. I will be playing it with it a lot later. So let me know what you think, if you have any feedback, and I will probably give you some updates, maybe in the comments, maybe in another video. But in any case, I'd like to thank you for watching and have a nice day. Bye.